Hi, I'm Phil McCauley, Vice Chair of Labour Business, and today I've got with me Hamish Sandison, Chair of Labour Business. Hamish, welcome. So now that we've left the European Union and we're in this transition to whatever the new arrangements are going to be, what is the Labour business message really to government and to the Labour Party about policy? What do we need to be thinking about given the tumultuous events of the Brexit referendum and the fact that we're now out of the European Union?
Well, clearly, we have to accept that we're out for the time being. We have to make the most of it. Our position was against Brexit. We thought Brexit would be extremely damaging to the economy. But now that's going to happen, we have to try to minimize that damage by keeping as close a possible alignment between the UK and the EU in terms of access to markets, in terms of the customs union, in terms of worker protection, consumer protection, and very importantly now, environmental protection. So we'll be arguing for that close relationship with the EU. We would have loved to remain in the EU because that's the closest possible relationship. We can't have that now. So we want as much alignment as we can possibly have. And critically, we're talking at a time of a pandemic, and we're still in the midst of that. We're arguing very strongly, and we applaud Keir Starmer for putting this at the center of public debate. We're arguing for the transition period to be extended because there's no way that we can or even should take time negotiating a deal on Brexit by the end of this year, which is not very long away. Failing to reach a deal, we then exit without a deal, when in fact our whole focus should be to tackle coronavirus, to let Europe tackle its coronavirus problems. And for me, it's a no-brainer. You've got to extend the transition period. That's not about saying we won't exit. It's about saying, let's focus on the most important crisis now, which is coronavirus. Let's deal with the EU trade negotiations next year when we've got coronavirus behind us, hopefully.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because, of course, at the moment we have a government where Boris Johnson, unfortunately, has been ill and he's recovering, and we wish him well. But at the same time, there seems to be a complete absence of any strategic direction at all on Brexit. And of course, we now have a real focus on international trade, how that's going to work. Emily Thornberry in the chair for Labour in her new shadow position. What is your message for Emily and for the trade team from a Labour perspective?
Well, as I just said, I think it's important first that we ask for the transition period to be extended. Secondly, that we lay out a constructive program for the EU trade negotiations. Those come first. Obviously, we'll have to negotiate deals with other countries as well. But let's forget this nonsense about, trying to do a deal with Trump first. Trump's marketplace in the US is far, far smaller than our European marketplace. And our businesses, our members, are desperate to maintain their position in the European marketplace and to allow them to sell their goods, to sell their services to the biggest marketplace on our back door must be the priority. And that means alignment of regulations. That's important for services, not forgetting that services are the biggest chunk of our economy. Secondly, membership of a customs union or something similar to a customs union, which is really important for goods, manufacturing in particular, so that we can have just-in-time delivery back and forth across the channel. And then thirdly, that we don't go down the route of lowest denominator, where we become a kind of Singapore off the European continent, where we drive down worker rights, we drive down consumer protection, and drive down European standards. For a start, you won't get a deal with Europe if we try to do that, because they'll say that's unfair. It's not a level playing field. But I would put it much more positively than that. I would say that for Labour, the important thing is that we want to drive up standards. And in our trade negotiations, therefore, with the EU and with other countries, but most importantly with the EU, we need to set the bar as high as we possibly can in terms of the environment, in terms of consumer protection, workers' rights, and a free flow of goods and services between the UK and the EU.
Yes, and of course we've seen a tremendous impact on the weakness in the supply chain under the coronavirus conditions. And of course, as you just said, Brexit makes that equally challenging.